This is the first time I've streamed about Eid al-Adha. This year, I feel I know more Muslim people, and I feel I should know a little bit more about their festivals. One thing about Eid is that I only recently discovered that there are two Eids every year, and one is Eid al-Fitri, which wasn't all that long ago, and now there's Eid al-Adha. So I was thinking, oh, it's the same thing, it's Eid again, isn't time going quickly as one gets older? But they're actually two different festivals. It's like saying, oh, it's Christmas again or Easter again, but actually they are, they just sound the same in Arabic, and they're two quite different festivals. So, what does this festival celebrate? I am reminded of these rather disturbing pictures of animals being slaughtered in public. And it is about this, really. It is about Abraham making a sacrifice of his son because he was following God's instructions, and happily he discovers that God didn't really want didn't want him to sacrifice his son, and an animal will do just as well. And this began, I believe, the end of the human practice of human sacrifice, as far as no hides were concerned, and the beginning of animal sacrifice. I mean, is it? Well, I'm sure animals were sacrificed anyway before that, but it was saying that an animal sacrifice is good enough, and part of this celebration is to divide the meat into three parts, and to make sure that the poor got to eat some meat. And the whole point of it is to share your meat. I'm trying to find the bit about Islamic ritual sacrifice. There's quite a lot to read. I'm not really familiar with the idea, but we are clear that animals are to be sacrificed. And what I thought was most interesting is that I think men are supposed to do the slaughtering, and that's why you do see these pictures, these disturbing pictures of animals being slaughtered in public. Well, I've seen it. I've seen photographs of it in public. I think if you Google, you will find that. And recently, I think somewhere in America, they got permission to slaughter their animals in their backyard, which will doubtless be considered very disturbing and unpleasant for their neighbours. But this celebration seems to me to affirm the right of humans to eat meat, and those of us who do enjoy eating meat should be well, glad for the affirmation that we are indeed allowed to eat meat. This reminds me of rabbis who are supposed to certify whether slaughter's been kosher. I haven't actually looked up this topic myself, but I imagine rabbis are expected to go into abattoirs and observe how these things are done. And then they have to certify that it was done correctly. And I suppose it's a kind of rite of passage for rabbis to do this sort of thing. And and then this makes me think of bullfighting, when it used to be the thing in Spain to do. I mean, the bull is well, it's always eaten. Nobody, would dream of not eating the meat of the fallen bull. And when you look more deeply about into these rituals, you'll see that it must be about promoting masculine valor, the idea that men are not afraid to shed blood, that it is necessary, it's part of their identity, in the sense of the bullfighter, because he is courting danger for the amusement of the spectators. And and I guess on the question of slaughtering lambs and cattle in your backyard, if you have one, it is the affirming of the right to eat meat. I suppose you could ask, well, why didn't they just buy it from the butchers? I think that would be, well, very expensive. I suppose if you bought, I don't know how much. How much is a lamb these days? If you wanted to buy it from a farmer, price of a lamb. UK. How are they sold? How much does lamb cost in the UK? Cheaper lamb price. £5.76 British pounds per kilo of dressed carcass weight. So I think if you wanted to buy a whole one, it'd be over 100 quid. So not cheap, and I suppose you save some money by doing the slaughtering yourself. Yes, I suppose you can't really. There must be a price of live lamb. I guess that's what I'm looking for. Price of a live lamb UK. And then I guess it would vary depending on the breed or something. Let me have a look. So I've got 900 quid. Okay, this is a show lamb, so that's 900 quid. Then we have ewes, lambs, and gimmers. Not sure what gimmers are. Well, you can get 24 Dorset ewes, lambs, and gimmers for 3,500. 100 easy care breeding ewes, proven mums, 24 to 28. months old, and what's the price of it? Oh, they're saying it's 95 quid each. So it's already okay. So a live one is 95 quid, and obviously, you know, if you bought it from a butcher's, it's going to be much more. So okay, there's an element of cost there, and obviously, a lot of people don't want to be, you know, seen dead slaughtering cattle in their own backyard. But I guess people from the third world will have no such inhibitions. Now, a lot of people, understandably, would be very upset at having this sort of thing go on in their neighbour's backyard. But I wonder how. This squeamishness. Now, okay, I grew up in a locality where where there was a wet market, and you see live animals, you know, chickens being boiled, and unpleasant smells and unpleasant sights. But I suppose if you grow up thinking, yes, this is where meat comes from, it came from a live animal, and then you slaughter it. And I'm reminded of this conversation I had many years ago, talking to this Essex girl actually, and she was saying, "Isn't it terrible that animals are slaughtered?" I said, "Well, how else are you going to kill them?" And then she said, "Well, you could poison them." And I thought, but well, you poison yourself if you ate the poisoned meat. And she didn't really have an answer to that, but she did say how appalled and disgusted she was at how disgusting the practice of you know, eating meat is. But I think a lot of people are a bit hypocritical about it. Yes, of course, it's nice when, you know, we just go to the market and we see, you know, pieces of steak and chunks of stewing steak sitting on aisles, and, you know, nicely packaged and everything, as opposed to, you know, going to some wet market and, you know, having, you know, see a piece of carcass hanging on a hook and saying you want, you know, this bit from where, how many pounds or of it. So, shouldn't we know where our food comes from? I think we should. And you know, when you think of people thinking, oh, they're so healthy now, they have, you know, all kinds of dairy substitutes, oat milk, you know, whatever. And you think, do you really know what goes into these liquids, these plant milk food things? We don't really know. And all this reminds me of a movie called Soylent Green, and it was a film that gave me enormous distress. It traumatized me, really, when I thought about it. But anyway, the point has been reached, you know, 2020. So Soylent Green was a movie with Charlton Heston talking with a dystopian future in 2020, when the price of rice was $200 or something like that, and regularly there would be human scoopers scooping up humans to take them away somewhere, to be processed and you know, to become biscuits or something, and which are called Soylent Green. And of course the end the denouement of the movie was Soylent Green is people. But then memory is short, and it seems that you can now get something called Soylent Green, and it's actually a food product. Let me just check this for you. film was made in 1973. And there must be, isn't it a food product as well, or did I dream it? Okay, so there's a food product called Soylent. Soylent, produced by Soylent Nutrition Incorporated, is an American company that produces meal replacement products in powder, shake, and bar forms. The company was founded in 2013 and is headquartered in Los Angeles, California. Soylent is named after a food in Make Room. Isn't that interesting? So back to the point of Eid. It is celebrating the fact that human sacrifice is to be ended, and instead of human sacrifice, we have, a nice meal of meat that we share with the poor, which I cannot find objectionable in principle, since we are supposed to share it with the poor. It's also supposed to, well, keep us in touch with the idea of, well, where our food comes from. We have to, we have to kill it. And I see no harm in acknowledging that this must be done. I mean, if we're going to eat meat, I mean, okay, I'll probably be a vegetarian if I had to go around, cutting the throats of animals in order to eat my food. I think I would actually choose the vegetarian option. But if it's already done for me and it's cooked nicely and put on a plate for me, then I'm going to choose the carnivorous option. It's all a matter of convenience, I suppose. A lot of us are squeamish. We may like the taste of steaks and chops and all that, but if we had to do it ourselves, if we had to actually chase around the thing and hurt it and kill it and render it and do whatever it is necessary to make it edible, then many of us might hesitate. Another thing that comes to mind is that a lot of animals are abundant because they're useful to us. Because we like to eat lamb and sheep, we farm them and we grow them and there's plenty of them. But if they weren't so useful to us, there would be fewer of them. So if we stopped eating those animals, they might well become extinct, wouldn't they? I mean, for one thing, all these chickens and lambs and cattle would just wouldn't know how to go about fending for themselves if we all suddenly stopped eating them. And they would become extinct. So it's all swings and roundabouts, I suppose. For many, though, people will be thinking, well, we preferred our country before all these Muslims came and introduced their, well, primitive practices that upset us with the blood and gore of all these animals being subject to being cruelly slaughtered. Well, not thinking about, well, they you do eat lamb and beef and pork and chicken, and they do have to be slaughtered, and you don't seem to care about how they are slaughtered, as long as they're not slaughtered in the halal way. I mean, is the halal method of slaughter worse than the non-halal method of slaughter? It's impossible to tell. I mean, really, uh, okay, I'll just admit that I haven't myself witnessed it, and I don't particularly want to. I'm just quite happy to theorize about it because, well, I just don't think I would enjoy visiting abattoirs and comparing, different methods of slaughter. And in terms of animal cruelty, we have difficulty here about deciding which method would be the most cruel, wouldn't we? I mean, first just assuming the animal could talk and you could interview it after it had been slaughtered. I mean, what's it going to say to you? It's going to say, "Oh, I much prefer the conventional method of slaughter than halal method of slaughter. But actually, I prefer the kosher slaughter method most of all." I mean, this is an impossible situation. You can't, even if the animal could talk after it'd been slaughtered, you'd have to slaughter it, through different methods. And would it have to be the same animal? I mean, it's an impossible question, really. I mean, the only way that we can perhaps come to an answer to about these questions is to, I suppose, imagine ourselves being slaughtered in these different methods, and then answer a survey like, well, if I were a lamb, how would I prefer to be slaughtered? The kosher way, the halal way, or the conventional way? And then you'd have to ask all these people who want to say something about it, to visit all these kosher abattoirs, and then the halal abattoirs, and then the conventional abattoirs, and take notes. I mean, it would just traumatize them so hopelessly that there'll be none, left sane enough to answer your survey. But obviously, uh, animals should be slaughtered in the most humane way possible, and the Muslim way is to um, turn the animal facing towards Mecca, say a prayer over it after having calmed it, and then cut its throat. And that apparently is how it is done. I'm actually not sure about how Jews do it, so let me have a look. Who shows? And it's called Shakita or something. Kosher slaughter is performed by a qualified butcher known as shoket and involves continuous cutting of the esophagus and blood vessels using a special sharp kalef knife with a length of the straight blade being at least twice the diameter of the animal's neck. Now, why has it got to be long? I suppose so you can cut it with one smooth motion. I think that's the reason. How is kosher slaughter different from regular? In contrast to non-religious slaughter, the animal is not stunned prior to slaughter. In processing kosher meat, certain veins and arteries must be carefully removed, as well as the sciatic nerve. The meat is then soaked, salted, and rinsed, following a strict time schedule to remove additional blood. So what I do know about Jews is that some naughty Jews actually prefer non-kosher slaughter because they go on about how tender the steak of non-kosher butchers are. Okay, so obviously it's controversial. I mean, you will never, I've told you the impossible situation that, even if you could find an animal who could talk, and who could, you wouldn't be able to revive it after it's been dead, and you won't be able to subject it to, different processes, different slaughter methods to give you a coherent view. So I'm afraid it's just left to, the opinions of humans who probably won't be objective about the whole thing. Okay, so we'll have a look at Shakita. And you need to procedure. Here we are, procedure. Okay, it's a bit technical. Anyway, it's supposed to be very long and very sharp, and I think it's to do with, a swift, clean movement. It says a procedure may be performed with the animal either lying on its back or standing. The procedure is done with the intention of causing a rapid drop in blood pressure in the brain and loss of consciousness to render the animal insensitive to pain and to exsanguinate in a prompt and precise action. So it's actually full of little rules about, if you do it in the wrong way, then it's no longer kosher. There's a picture of the knife. No, and the blade cannot have imperfections. It has to be checked. Now, um, do they say prayers? Do they say a prayer for it? I'm not sure. Because I believe I read somewhere that in using the halal method of slaughter, you'll face the animal towards Mecca. Okay, so we know definitely that the animal is, I mean, that the slaughterer will have to say a prayer to before the animal is killed, which I think is nicer than not saying a prayer at all. I can't tell from the Wikipedia Shikita whether the Jews do that. I'll just do this word search thing. No, it doesn't say anything about a prayer. So, maybe if you were an animal and had to choose, you might think, well, it sounds kind of, more respectful to say a prayer before before you kill me than for you not to say a prayer before you kill me. And oh well, I don't know. I mean, I guess an animal might, a human putting um, himself or herself in the place of an animal might think, well, it is more respectful if you said a prayer before you killed me. So um, that's basically my thoughts on it. Um, and really, that's all I have to say on the subject of um, Muslim meat eating day. I guess that's what Eid al-Adha means, really. So thank you for listening, and speak to you before too long.